Opening. 10,000 years ago, on the wild, sun-baked shores of Lake Turkana, a scene unfolded that would echo across the millennia. A pregnant woman sat bound, her arms behind her back, helpless. Obsidian-tipped arrows screamed through the air above her as chaos raged nearby. Her unborn child, never to take its first breath, would become part of humanity's oldest known massacre. Forget the sweeping heroics of Hollywood. There were no gallant speeches, no clashing swords on misty hills. Prehistoric conflict wasn't romantic. It was vicious, calculated, and terrifying in its efficiency. Today, we peel back layers of time and myth to reveal the raw, unfiltered truth about the violence that shaped early humanity. Were our ancestors gentle foragers, living in peace with the land? Or were they warriors in waiting, capable of orchestrated brutality that predated agriculture, empires, and written language? Join us as we dive deep into the ancient bones, tools, and truths that redefine what we think we know about prehistoric war, the earliest echoes of violence. Our journey begins not in a battlefield, but in the quiet stillness of a Spanish cave. There, 400,000 years ago, long before Homo sapiens emerged, someone struck a fatal blow. At Cima de los Huesos, archaeologists uncovered cranium 17, a fractured skull bearing 2 deep depression wounds on the forehead. These were not the result of an accident. Forensic analysis confirmed the trauma was delivered with the same object, in separate strikes, from close range. This was no random fall. This was intentional, face-to-face, lethal. It marked the earliest known evidence of interpersonal violence among our hominin ancestors. But while this was an isolated act, it posed a haunting question. When did killing become collective? When did we start organizing not to survive, but to eliminate others like us? The Nataruk massacre. The answer came thousands of miles away, on the dusty plains near Kenya's Lake Turkana. In 2012, archaeologists stumbled upon a crime scene frozen in time. The shattered remains of 27 individuals who died violently around 10,000 years ago. This wasn't a burial ground. It was a battlefield. Dr. Marta Mirazon-Lar of Cambridge University led the investigation. Her team discovered 12 nearly complete skeletons, 10 of which showed unmistakable signs of violent death. There were skulls crushed by blunt objects, cheekbones shattered, ribs broken. Stone arrow tips were still embedded in some bodies. One man had a projectile lodged in his chest, another, a blade to the neck. Among the dead were women and children, 6 children under 6 years old, and 1 woman in the final stage of pregnancy. Most disturbing, at least 4 individuals, including the pregnant woman, appeared to have died with their hands bound. They were restrained. They were executed. What shocked researchers even more was the context. These weren't farmers defending land. They were nomadic foragers living in a rich environment abundant with fish and plant life. This wasn't a fight for survival. It was an attack by outsiders, armed with unfamiliar weapons, obsidian blades and clubs of varying sizes, suggesting planning, coordination, and deadly intent. Professor Robert Foley, who worked with Lar, summarized it best. It is in our biology to be aggressive and lethal, just as it is to be deeply caring and loving. The Nataruk massacre shattered the comforting notion that war came with civilization. Violence, it seemed, came long before cities or kings. The debate that divides science. Not everyone agrees with the massacre interpretation. In the journal Nature, anthropologist Christopher Stoyanowski and his colleagues pushed back. They questioned whether the damage seen on the skeletons was truly inflicted in life. Could geological shifts, animal activity, or environmental pressures have caused some of the trauma post-mortem? They argued the spatial organization of the remains didn't match known massacre sites. Bodies were still articulated. There was little disruption. It didn't look like the aftermath of a chaotic slaughter. It looked too intact. This debate underscores a truth about prehistoric archaeology. We deal in fragments, in subtle clues. One misinterpreted fracture can rewrite an entire theory. But even if Nataruk isn't definitive proof of war, it paints a chilling portrait of early human capabilities, not just for violence, but for tactical violence. That changes the conversation entirely. The weapons that changed everything. To understand prehistoric violence, we must understand the tools. While Neanderthals clung to heavy spears for close-range combat, early modern humans developed something revolutionary: the bow and arrow. In France, at Grotte Mandrin, archaeologists uncovered more than 500 minuscule stone points dated to 54,000 years ago. Dr. Lormetz and her team found these light. Narrow tools were unmistakably used as arrowheads. Their size ruled out any other use. These weren't just weapons. They were game changers. Bows allowed modern humans to hunt and kill from a distance. They didn't require brute strength. They could be carried, concealed, mired in rapid succession. According to Science Focus, these innovations gave Homo sapiens a clear advantage over Neanderthals in both hunting and warfare. The psychological impact of being hunted from afar, with no chance to retaliate, cannot be overstated. The extinction advantage. Neanderthals, despite their robust builds, showed little technological change over 150,000 years. Their toolkit stayed relatively stagnant. Modern humans, by contrast, were tinkerers. They created adhesives from beeswax, ochre, and plant resin to fix their arrowheads. They understood wood flexibility, string tension, and flight dynamics. The fossil record tells the story. Neanderthal bones are riddled with trauma skull injuries, fractured arms, all signs of close quarters combat. Modern humans, less so. Their wounds suggest ranged attacks, strategic ambushes, and organized defense. They didn't just survive. They outperformed, outthought, and outlasted their rivals. As Dr. Metz put it, bows and arrows allow you to kill more people from a distance. In war, that's everything. The complex motives of prehistoric war. By the Neolithic era, warfare wasn't just about food. It became entwined with identity, power, and even reproduction. Consider the Talheim death pit in Germany, circa 500 BCE. Researchers found 34 skeletons, mostly men and children, no local women, but there were immigrant women present. The suggestion: these men had fought to capture women, not land. At Paco Pampa in Peru, another story unfolded. Skeletons bore healed fractures, evidence not of deadly battle, but of recurring non-lethal violence, possibly ritualistic, maybe ceremonial. These weren't combat wounds. They were marks of a society with complex rules around violence. These finds show us war wasn't monolithic. Sometimes it was for territory, sometimes for mates, sometimes for honor. Human motives, even then, were as tangled as our own. The architecture of fear. One of the most astonishing discoveries in recent years wasn't a weapon or a bone, but a wall. In Siberia, archaeologists uncovered Amnia Fort, a fortified hunter-gatherer settlement from 8,000 years ago. Surrounded by earthworks and palisades, it wasn't built by farmers, but by mobile foragers. This finding rewrote what we thought we knew. Forts weren't born with agriculture. Fear was older than that. Across Europe, 15th Similar fortified sites from the Neolithic and Bronze Ages have been uncovered, some over 20 hectares wide. Defensive ditches, walls, towers. These were serious constructions. They required leadership, cooperation, and a collective will to prepare for violence. The forgotten victims. There is one group whose stories are often buried in these ancient graves, the children. Archaeological records from sites like Nataruk, Talheim, and Schletz Asparn frequently show children among the dead. They weren't collateral damage. They were targets. Why? Perhaps to eliminate future rivals. Perhaps to break the spirit of survivors. Perhaps because even then, war dehumanized. One haunting discovery from Schletz Asparn in Austria revealed infants with crushed skulls, their bodies placed atop women. A message, a warning. We may never know, but what is clear is that violence didn't spare the innocent. Conclusion. Prehistoric battles weren't epics of glory. They were eruptions of survival instinct, of fear, of ambition. And yet, within that brutality was brilliance, invention, strategy, resilience. Our ancestors, armed with nothing but sharpened flint and determination, waged wars that echoed through time. They were artists, engineers, hunters, and warriors. And from their triumphs and tragedies, our civilizations were born. Understanding their story doesn't justify their violence, but it reminds us that the roots of war and peace run equally deep. The same hands that built bows to kill also carved flutes, painted caves, and buried their dead with care. We are the legacy of both.